It's a horror movie, so, certain days I was covered in blood, like, all day. And during our lunch break, I was just covered in blood and kind of forgot, and everyone was like, what? Who is this girl?
Yeah.
Like, almost like, should we call the police? And I was like, oh, it's all fake. I'm so sorry.
I was gonna say that's almost normal down there now, but back then it would be a sight to see it for sure.
100%.
You said you were in American Horror Story?
Yeah.
Which one?
I was in Roanoke. The one where they're like the old house.
The first one?
With Lady Gaga. It's Lady Gaga, sorry. And I remember seeing that American Horror Story had like built a house in the canyon. That's where they were shooting. And every time I would drive by it, I was like, I want to book this show. I want to be on this show. And then like a couple months later, I got an audition for it. I went in. It was like a very small part. And then I got the call and they're like, you booked it. And I was like, oh my God. Like, how cool is that I just drove by this set like hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And then it was my first union gig that I booked in the States. So it was kind of like a little game changer for me out there. Do you know the movie Waterworld?
No. Yeah.
Then Costner? Yeah. So it came out in 1994.
When Mike was 12. I was three.
I was 8.
Oh, guys, I was in high school. Damn it.
I was 3 years old, bro.
I was like making out during this movie.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right, well, welcome to the Tango One Podcast. I'm Tony Smith, your host, with my co-host Mike DeFazio.
What's up?
And today's guest, Sarah Booth.
Hello.
Sarah Booth is an actress. I'm gonna not do justice with my little hand scribbles that I go off, but she's the ACTRA Breakthrough Actress of the Year. She was the Business Artist of the Year. She's won all kinds of other things and starred in all kinds of different shows and movies, which we're going to get into. The Scare House, which was directed and acted by you, right?
Yes.
Right?
No. Produced by me. Gavin, my husband, directed it, but we made it in Windsor, right downtown, which was crazy. It was
On Felicia.
Yes. Like,
I know where that is, and I was 100% in that basement.
Really?
Either
Have you
before
seen the
or
pool?
after or...
Did you see the abandoned pool?
Wait, what part? He's on Felicia?
Yeah, it's like the old Knights of Columbus Hall.
So it's on the other side of Wyandotte?
It's like in between.
Depends what side of Wyandotte you're on.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like what? Yeah. like away from the water.
Yes, away from the water.
Okay, I've been in there, and I've seen that pool. That place is super creepy.
It really is.
How long ago was that?
We made that movie in 2013, I believe.
Wow.
2013, yeah. So we made that a long time ago. That was me and Gavin met in Toronto. He was still living in Windsor at the time. I was living in Toronto. And we got married very quickly. And we both knew we wanted to make movies together. So we said, well, let's make a short film first because we'd rather not make movies together and stay married, right?
Yeah.
And then that went well. And so we decided to make a feature film, which was The Scare House. And we shot that about like 9 months after we got married. So we joked that it was our first baby.
Yeah,
And,
9 months. That's so funny.
Yeah, and shot it in Windsor. So it was kind of my first time like hanging out and being in Windsor, which was fun. We ate way more pizza than we should have.
That's a good thing. That or shawarma.
It's funny. Like it's a horror movie. So, certain days I was covered in blood like all day. And during our lunch break, one time we went to Shawarma King? Is it Shawarma King? Shawarma Palace downtown and all that. And I was just covered in blood and kind of forgot. And everyone was like, what? Who is this girl?
Yeah.
Like, almost like, should we call the police? And I was like, oh, it's all fake. I'm so sorry. But yeah.
Fast forward to 2024, nobody even bat an eye.
Yeah, people be like,
if you're walking down
she's
all
fine.
that covered in blood.
I was gonna say that's almost normal down there now, but back then it would be a sight to see it for sure.
100%.
Crazy.
So let's start there because you're not even from Windsor. You're from Quebec.
Yeah.
You've lived in LA. So you guys know, Sarah comes to the gym in Windsor. That's how I've gotten to know her. And then we only like kind of touch on these little parts of your life during the like 5 minutes between like a set or,
catching my breath.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, I want to like, which is one of the reasons I want to go on here because I'm like, now we can actually talk about some of the stuff I don't know about you, which is cool. So you're from Montreal. Like, how does this all start? This whole actress, this, LA, everything really, I guess.
Yeah.
It's probably a big, long story, but like, where do you start?
I mean, I've told it a few times, so I got it like down.
You got it? All right.
Nice.
Down into
I'm
a
like
good
trying to
soundbite.
get better with my questions, being more specific, because that was like the broadest question of all time.
No, it's all
Tell me
good.
about the last 20 years of your life.
But, okay, here we go. 2 minutes. Well, actually, growing up, I never knew acting was a thing ever. Like I would watch I grew up on a farm, so my family had like Disney movies and Shirley Temple. That was the extent of like my exposure to media. So I was, never thought that it was a possibility. Then in high school, they started an arts program. I auditioned for a play and I got it. And, it just was like, how do I do this for the rest of my life? And I realized that Montreal had one of the best theater programs in Canada. So I said, well, I'll audition and see if I get in. If I get in, like, it's a good sign that I'll keep going. So audition, got in, did 3 years of professional theater, and then, graduated, started working in Montreal, felt the ceiling in Montreal. And then I decided to move to Toronto because, you just want to like not only work in one city or, Montreal has its limitations on certain productions. And then I moved to Toronto, couldn't get an audition to save my life in Toronto. So I said, fuck this shit. And me and Gavin applied for our green cards and moved to LA for about 6 years. And then the pandemic hit. And it's extremely expensive to live in Los Angeles. So we said, you know what, let's go back home, ride it out. And it's honestly been like the best 4 years of my career being back here in Canada. So
like the best in terms of like for you personally, for you professionally, a mix of thereof?
Both, but I would say like especially professionally.
Okay.
Since I worked in the States, all of a sudden people in Canada are like, ooh,
you're
you
like
have
fancy
American
now.
credits.
Yeah.
Like, we'll hire
really?
you. Oh, 100%. You kind of have to play that game, a little bit. So when I was in the States, I was able to do, like I did Law and Order, SVU, I did American Horror Story, I did the TV show SWAT. So I had like some big American credits. And all of a sudden Canada was like, hey, where have you been? I was like, I've been here for a really long time, but thanks for noticing.
Like, it seems surreal because when you join the gym, like we do like a little profile on everybody, basically, right? Like, like, and that's usually Nikki's job, especially in Windsor. So we get the profile, and she's like, "Oh, this is the new." And you guys had won. I think you and Gavin won this, right? Like your first, like you've now been like members, but you won your first opening membership, I believe, right?
We did, yeah. We attended. A friend invited us to GL Heritage Brewery for the I'm gonna screw up their name, but essentially it's a group here in Amherstburg that raises money for mountain biking.
Okay, I know who you are.
Okay,
I should know
Jason
it too,
is his name, but I forget like exactly what the name of the organization is. And I was at GL and I had a few drinks, and all of a sudden I was like, ooh, I'm gonna like bid on the silent auction, and I overbid way too much, and so we won it. And then the basically the prize was a month at Garage Gym and like a few other things. And then I was like, because I was looking for a spot to work out. I have a Peloton and stuff that was great during the pandemic, but I when I lived in LA, I taught fitness, and I was part of like a crazy stunt show, so I had so much community around physical activity. And that's what I was missing here. So as soon as I saw that gift certificate, I was like, I need to get that.
So you are like the only person who's ever stayed after winning a gift certificate.
Really?
We give out gift certificates like literally anytime anybody asks, like Stag and Doe, this fundraiser, that fund. We give them out all the time.
Yeah, because you're like, they never stay.
You're the only. Well, I mean, the idea is we want people to
No,
stay.
of
You're
course,
the only one we
yeah.
ever got. But like that's one of the reasons why I remember your first day. And then like getting your like little bio thing, and Nikki's like, "Oh, actress and been in this," and I'm like, "What the heck, really?" And then I pull up your name, and it's like, "Oh my god, like this is like a real deal." Like just like it was pretty wild. So it is surreal to think that you've been on some of those massive shows. Is it weird for you? Like,
it's actually really well. When I lived in LA, it was really fun to be surrounded by everyone in the business because, you're feeding off of each other. Yeah. You're at the grocery store and you're like, oh, cool. Like Olivia Wilde's doing her groceries like me. Like it feels tangible that you could make it in this business because it's just all around you. So that was a fun part about that. But being in Windsor in a place that, acting and the entertainment business is not the center of the universe here, it's also super refreshing because it's not what everyone talks about all the time too. So I feel like there's like good parts and bad parts about that, but sometimes I find myself not being as like proactive with my career because I'm like, oh yeah, like you don't have all the people around you being like, so I'm going to this acting class today, I'm going to go do this. You just kind of like start living your life like I would live my life in Windsor, and then some people are like, oh my God, you're an actor. And you're like, oh yeah, I am. Like you forget almost because I am an actor every day, but I don't get to do my craft necessarily every day.
Right.
So yeah, but people are pretty blown away in the area when they're like, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm an actor. And they're like, so like community theater, like what?
Right. That's
like as a hobby. Right? Yeah. And I'm like, no, actually I do it like full time.
Like had I not Googled you on that initial day, I would have thought it's the same thing. This guy has not made a noise the whole day until we start shooting the podcast. That door's been broken for 3 months since we moved in.
No.
Yeah. Anyways, but that is wild. And like, so I don't know, you must get the thing. Mike got this yesterday. You text me, he's like, somebody recognized me from the podcast. Like,
yeah, it was cool. He's like, the guy's like, hey, is your name Mike? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I saw you on the podcast. I mean, like, because it was interesting because I never met this guy before and he didn't even know what I did. He just knew me from here.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. He's probably listening right now.
But you must get like a lot of pleasure out of it. Because that little, and it's like, we don't have the audience that SVU has. That's right.
For sure.
So when we get like recognized or somebody shoots you out, like you're like, oh man, thank you for listening. Like, but you must feel the same way, right? But you're
100%.
getting that, like, you could be in Toronto, you could be in Montreal, you could be in Pittsburgh doing the shoot next week or something, right?
100%. Yeah. And it's like, I don't get it a lot because, I'm not like famous or anything, but I did a show a couple years ago that was played on Amazon, and that's the one that like I'll bump into people and they're like, were you the cop on Three Pines? And I'm like, yeah, that was me. So like I start to get like recognized a little bit more. But yeah, when it happens, it feels good because you're like, wow, people are watching my stuff. It feels like I'm not gonna lie, like it's like you're like, oh, this is part of the success. This is what I want, And yeah, I sometimes shy away from it just naturally, but then you're like, no, this is what I want. Because if you want to be a bankable name, then people have to know who you are, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. So like you said you were in American Horror Story?
Yeah.
Which one?
I was in Roanoke. The one where they're like the old house.
The first one?
With Lady Gaga. It's Lady Gaga, sorry. Gaga.
I don't know. Yeah.
Lady Gaga?
Yeah,
where she played the witch.
I knew you were talking about it.
I don't know how to describe it. It's like kind of meta where they're like playing characters, but then you realize they're like in a reality show kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Maybe I didn't see that one. There was a few that came out after I stopped watching it, but I used to love that show.
Yeah, it's good.
Crazy.
It's creepy.
It's the scariest show I've ever watched in my life.
It's crazy because like it was actually I used to work at a fitness studio in Malibu, and my path to drive there was always through this canyon that I loved. And I remember seeing that American Horror Story had like built a house in the canyon. That's where they were shooting. And every time I would drive by it, I was like, oh, I want to book this show. I want to be on this show. And then like a couple months later, I got an audition for it. I went in. It was like a very small part. And then I got the call and they're like, you booked it. And I was like, oh my God. Like, how cool is that I just drove by this set like hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And then it was my first union gig that I booked in the States. So it's kind of like a little game changer for me out there.
Nice. So you lived and worked in the States.
Yeah, in California.
How did you like it?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I never thought that I would leave Los Angeles. When we moved there, I was like, this is it. This is home. Like, obviously, we'll come back to Canada to work because there's a lot of work up here. But I never saw myself leaving Los Angeles just because, like, the outdoors, the surfing, the hiking. Right. It was great. Like, financially, very stressful.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, for real.
Extremely stressful. But overall, I felt like it was worth it. But because of the pandemic, everything changed in our business. So instead of walking into, an audition room where there's casting directors or producers, I tape from home. And that's pretty much what most people are doing now. So you can live where you want. You can go on vacation and just tape your audition on vacation. So it's really changed. If someone would ask me 5 years ago, or if Gavin would have asked me, hey, like, let's move to Windsor, I would have been like, fuck no. Like, absolutely not. But honestly, it's been the best decision that we have made. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And you were saying, you touched on this in the gym, which I never thought of, like one about the recordings, because you're able to send them. So you're able to actually audition for more things.
Yeah.
But that's also increased the amount of competition at the auditions because everybody's able to do the same thing. Everybody in that line of work is able to do the same thing for the same positions. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, when it was like a physical audition, depending on what kind of role it was, casting directors will see anywhere between like 10 to like, let's say 25 to 30 people. But now with tapes, they're seeing hundreds of people. So it's definitely increased the competition a lot, but everything's shooting in Canada. So that makes my position like the best position to be in right now, because all the productions are
and they're
up here.
saving on like other costs, like logistic costs that people probably don't think about if you're not a business owner. Like you're thinking about like shipping from Windsor to Toronto, like on a train, right, rather than from LA to Vancouver to Toronto, like like we're talking like savings just in those kinds of things, right, which I'm sure has to go through their heads.
100%. Yeah, they love, like, productions love shooting in Canada because the tax credits up here are amazing, and they know that there's a lot of good talent in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. So they, they'll bring their stars up from the States, and then the rest of the roles they'll fill with like local talent.
Cool. Definitely didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. And then like thinking like my son who just walked by the window last night, he's like, Dad, he calls me and he's reading a book, and he's like, hey, he's reading a baseball book. He says, do you know what, baseball, you fail 7 out of 10 times, you still end up in the Hall of Fame. And this reminded me of you, because something I did not realize is like you were saying, what did you say, like 1 out of 100 gigs? Like it's like I said, because I had asked her, I said, Sarah, do you like sit around, waiting on these gigs? Because I would be like, you put an application for something, I'd be so excited. But then she corrects me and says like, no, like maybe let's get into that.
Yeah.
That was mind blowing to me, because your ability, like the amount of rejection that you were talking about was wild.
100%. So like I'll audition anywhere between, anywhere between like 75 to like 125 times per year ish. Like that's a good year. 75 kind of shitty, 125 great year, because that means I'm auditioning like 3 times a week, or sorry, like every 3 days or so. Right. And out of that, if you would sit down with a boss and be like, all right, like how many of your tasks have you like nailed, and I'll be like 3%. Yeah. Anyone would be like, you're a failure. You fail if you can only like accomplish your goal 3% of the time. Right. But for me, that's actually a really good percentage of booking. So yeah, I'll audition between 75 to 125 times a year and book maybe 1, 2, 3.
So you just send it and forget it.
Send it and forget it. Most of the time, my agent will come back and be like, hey, remember this? And I'll be like, nope.
Yeah.
Well, you have a callback for it. Okay, great. Then I go back and I look at the email. I look at my audition. I'm like, oh yeah. But I have to admit, obviously, there's some roles that come into my inbox and that I audition for and I can't fucking let go of. I'm like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Like I just auditioned for a huge series that would be like a career changer for me. But I think about it. I like, me and my manager were talking yesterday. I was like, so did you get any feedback on that tape? Yeah. And he's like, nope. And I'm like, okay, great. Yeah. That's it.
Right, where's the next one?
Yeah, exactly. Where's the next one, so that I can get my mind off of it? Because there's so many factors. It's so out of your control when you audition for something. And I have been on the other side of the table where, me and Gavin make movies. So I've been able to watch other people's auditions and cast them in our films. And that was such a great learning experience, because you rarely hire the best actor. You hire the actor that's right for that part. So, depending on what the lead looks like, you have to cast appropriately to that, age wise. There's just so many factors. You could have a producer that just sees your face and he's like, that reminds me of my sister-in-law and I fucking hate her, and he won't hire you. It's just like so random. Yeah. You never know. So but like, it's also something that brings me a lot of comfort, because it's not about my talent.
True.
It's like at the end of the day, I know that I'm auditioning for these roles and that like I have enough talent to do these roles. Like that's not what I beat myself up at. Like after, I just, you're just like, what wasn't for me, didn't work out. Sometimes you get really upset, especially when you get really close to something. Like if you're testing for a role, you have to sign a contract. You know how much you're going to get paid. It's so real, but it's between you and another actor. And then like they call you and they're like, sorry, it went to the other girl. And you're like, okay, moving on. You know, like those are the ones that hurt.
Yeah, for
you know,
sure.
When you're like
Sting.
in it and you can see the money and you're like, and it's like 5 years of work and you're like, yeah, those are tough.
Wow.
But you have to just like trust the universe, because 6 months later, I auditioned for something else that I was like, oh my God, if I would have got that, I wouldn't have been able to do this.
Yeah.
And it all makes sense now, right? But
for sure. So what are you doing, like training in between all that? Like if you're not just constantly auditioning, like what are you, well, I mean, it sounds like you are constantly auditioning, but like what are you doing in between auditions?
Yeah.
Like to make yourself a better actor?
Yeah. To become better at what you're
better
doing,
at your skill,
at your craft. Yeah.
Well, it's very similar. Like I compare acting to going to the gym.
Yeah.
So auditions for me, I do treat like training sessions. You know, like, oh, how could I make this more challenging for me, or I need to work on this. So let's throw some of that in there for this audition. So I do use auditions as training, but you know, acting classes, when it was the pandemic, I was, you know, doing comedy improv via Zoom, like anything that I can get my hands on. It's hard here because in Windsor, there's not that many acting classes. But I do coach other actors as well. So we get to play and try things together. And me and Gavin are creators. So we're always writing, coming up with ideas. So I feel like that keeps me really sharp. I'm reading scripts all the time. But yeah, I have to say I'm really lucky that my auditions keep me pretty sharp. But for me, I would say what I do between acting gigs is take care of my mental health, because that's the hardest thing I think about my career is when I'm not working, because you're like, I have no purpose. What am I doing? That's when like you start to spiral. You want the next job. Sometimes it becomes like you're like a squirrel, right? You're like just looking for your next like,
which is
acorn.
like probably a lot of the struggle. Like when I worked with, when we talked about this before, I was talking about the UFC fighter I worked with, because you kind of remind me of that. Like she's training every day as if she's going to be in a fight.
Yeah.
You know, and trying to find a fight. And like the fights are few and far between. You know, you work only really every 3-4 months.
Yep.
If you work 3-4 times a year, it's a lot.
Yep.
And it's like she would have that struggle, like, oh my, and to repeat, to get up every day, to submit those auditions, to work on your craft without the reciprocation of that job.
Yeah,
is got to be a challenge, because we know, like,
when
we're putting in the habits for business and you're not getting, sales aren't going up. It's very hard to stick to what you know is going to work some point.
Yeah,
you might not be able to see the end.
100%, and it just takes that trust, and you're your own boss at the end of the day. And sometimes when your boss is depressed, not much is happening. You know what I mean? So that's why like the gym for me has been a lifesaver, because every day I wake up and I go and I see humans in real life.
Yeah.
And I get to have social interactions, healthy social interactions with people, and I work out and I get like whatever I need to get out of my body that day. So that's why, like, honestly, the gym has been like a huge lifesaver for me.
I mean, you're in the right spot. Like, to be honest, like the culture that they have here at Garage Gym is insane. Like, you're surrounded by like the best people, I find.
I think so too. Like,
because you're not in the corner with your headphones on working out. Like, you're in like a sweaty hot mess with like 15 other people, and everyone's like trying to catch their breath. Everyone's drenched. Everyone, it's amazing. It's like, but everyone's jacked up and excited and happy and like laughing and yelling. It's awesome.
At 6 a.m.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. And then you go home and you've accomplished like something huge already.
Yeah.
As part of your day at 7, you're done.
Yeah.
So if I go home and I just sit on my ass all day, I won't feel as bad, because at least I went to the gym, right?
Yeah, you won the day before 7 a.m.
And I've seen like quite the transformation in you. Like I've been lucky enough to coach you a lot because I'm in Windsor a couple times a week, and for a long time you're coming to the 8 a.m., which is usually the class. It's very quiet. It's a good class. I love to jump in. I call it my girls. Yeah, me and my girls are working out this morning. It's
I'll come to 8 a.m. tomorrow.
You and Amanda and Chantel and my mom and me.
That's awesome.
And now Shane. So, but it's been awesome to like train and see that. But like almost a year ago today, like Garage Gym Games Time, I remember you came in solo to do your row and watching you nearly die. And it wasn't so much the physical part of that near death. It was that you were kind of ready to quit. Whereas now it's like, you're like, bring it. Like, and you'll still, like, it doesn't matter where your fitness level is. If you challenge yourself completely, you're always going to feel that near death. it's like the look in somebody's eye when they've learned that they can, yeah, I'm there, but I can handle this and I'm not going to die. I'm going to finish this race.
100%.
The best I can do.
100%.
Right? And that's what I've seen in you and the physical change. Like you're must be a lot stronger.
I was doing chin-ups the other day with the vest on.
What?
I couldn't even do a chin-up when I got here.
Right.
I mean, I could when I was doing the stunt show, but it's been a few years since I've done that. But yeah, no, it's been such, and like what I like about Garage Gym too is that you guys keep track of everything. I've never done that in my life. Is like, I'll keep track of things for like a month or two and then I fall off. You see good results and you're like, oh, I'm good. And then you kind of ignore it.
Yeah.
But with the app and always tracking the workouts and tracking, the weight that you're lifting, I've never done that before. And it is such a high and an addiction, like a great addiction to have, to be like, oh man, last week I did 135 pound deadlift. And this week I did 160. Like, I feel like a superhero, it's being able to look at those numbers and it gives you facts and it gives you real confidence.
Right. And you're a woman speaking to this, and it's nice to hear because I think a lot of women are only looking at the one number that they track every fucking day. Right. When you're looking at the amount of pull-ups, the amount of push-ups, you posted something about your back squat. Like those are the numbers that like, hey, we are making progress. You aren't doing this for, like you said, with the acting thing where it's hard. It's like, you're not doing this for nothing. You're doing this because yesterday you got better than today.
Exactly.
Right? That's awesome to hear that, and we appreciate having you. We love hearing that stuff too. That's the stuff that keeps us. Awesome. That's the stuff that's like better than money for us.
Well, that, and also like in my industry, like so much of it is like looks. Like it's getting better, but it's very much like, what do you look like? How much do you weigh? How tiny are you? Like there's so much of that happening, and it's really like powerful to like change that conversation, like to instead of like how little am I? How much can I disappear versus like how strong am I?
How about I put you in a headlock? How about that?
Exactly, right? Exactly.
Give me the roll.
Put you over my back and squat you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just it changes that perspective, and it's so much healthier.
Right.
Yeah, for the mind
That's
and the
amazing.
body.
So have you ever had to like make a transformation for a role, like we see these things like I don't know. On like Inside Edition or something.
Yeah.
And has to gain 20 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I don't know if I'm lucky, but I've never had to like do a crazy transformation for a role because it does like take a really huge toll on your body. Like I think like Christian Bale's like body is like absolutely fucked up because of like he went from The Machinist to Batman in like 3 months. And I think he like gained like over 100 pounds. Like it was crazy. He's like, my metabolism is screwed up. My body is all screwed up. But I mean, for me, the biggest transformation I would say that I went through was when I started doing the live stunt show in LA at Universal Studios, because, I'm doing this crazy, it's like a 20-minute nonstop action stunt show, and your life depends on your physical ability.
Yeah.
So you get in shape real fast. And that, I have to say, completely changed my body, because all of a sudden it wasn't about being, little and toned and have a six pack. It's about like you're climbing ladders. And if you don't climb like quick enough, it lights on fire. So hurry up.
I feel like this is right up your alley. Look at him like
so nuts.
Go ahead, take the mic.
Yeah. It's like, okay, so do you know?
I'm like, this sounds like so fun and so scary at the same time.
Do you know the movie Waterworld?
No.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner. Yeah. So it came out in 1994.
When Mike was 12.
I was 3.
I was 8.
Oh, guys, I was in high school. Damn it.
I was 3 years old, bro.
I was like making out during this movie.
Yeah.
Amazing. But essentially it's like Mad Max, but on water.
Okay.
So the whole world is covered in water. Anyways, so Universal Studios made a live stunt show based on this show. And it's like incredible. I've never seen a show like this in my life. The set is crazy. Like we drive boats on the set. There's like a pool big enough to fit like 6 boats in. There's fire, there's exploding platforms. A plane flies into the set at one point. And when me and Gavin first moved to LA, we went to Universal and he was like, oh, let's go see this live stunt show. And I was like, I don't want to go see like a theme park show. I'm good. And he's like, no, I heard it was really good. So we went, we sat down, and literally like 5 minutes into the show, I was like, how the fuck do I do this? Like, I need to be in this show. This is perfect. Acting, physical stuff, love it. And I need money. Like, I need a job.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
And I don't want to like be a waitress. Like, I would rather do something that's more in my world. So I just saw the show. It was on my mind. I was working at a fitness studio, and one of the other trainers had been away on jobs because she's a stunt girl, and she had come back. And she's like, yeah, my everyday, like, bread and butter job is Universal Studios Waterworld show. And I was like, oh my gosh, how did you get to do this show? And she's like, well, we have auditions coming up in 2 months. You should come. You would be great for this show. I auditioned for it and like booked this show, and it completely changed my life. It was incredible. Like, you get to, and also like it fulfills that part of you that, I don't get to act all the time, especially when I first moved to LA. Like, just getting an audition was a miracle. So I was able to perform in front of 3,000 people 5 times a day. And I was getting like that. My cup was
your
being
reps in.
Yeah. And my cup was being filled. Like, clap for me, please. Like it was, and also the people that came and saw the show, like, they're like, oh, Gwen Stefani's in the audience. It's like, Bruce Willis is here. And it's just like, cool. How cool is that?
Yeah.
And it helped a lot too. I would go into auditions in LA for more like independent films, and they'd be like, you're in Waterworld? And I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, let's hire her. Cause like they know the show. It's such a cool experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you moved to LA and you were like with nothing. You were just like, we're going to LA because we're chasing this thing.
Yeah. That was the dream.
And that was it. Like there was no work there that you knew. You weren't going into a job.
No, what happened is the Scare House came out that we shot in Windsor, our first movie, and Universal Studios bought it, which was incredible.
Okay, that's insane.
Insane.
Oh, just that little Universal Studio.
No big deal. Like I forgot to mention that part.
Yeah, it was
going to sell it to the city of Windsor, and then Universal Studios.
Universal came in. Yeah, I mean,
outbid them by a touch.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
Let's be honest. Like, also, when you make independent film, like, you always get fucked. So we didn't really make any money off of it. But seeing the Universal logo in front of our movie was like, wow, this is cool. So we decided to go down for 2 months to take meetings because it's, a good time to be like, hey, they just sold their film to Universal.
Momentum, right?
Exactly. And so we planned to be there for 2 months. We rented an apartment, like subletted for 2 months. And a month after being there, I was like, Gavin, we need to stay. This is it. And we stayed. We never came home. So we went down there with like that story, drove down in our Ford Focus with 2 suitcases. Yeah. With our Ford Focus that like the driver door didn't open.
Nice.
We would park down the street whenever we went somewhere so no one could see like our shitty car.
I love it.
Parking with every other actor and actress down the street.
Exactly.
It's just you guys, but with different faces, like all these shit cars.
But that's the thing, like
300 meters from Universal Studios is like this like circle of shitty vehicles.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's hiding, getting out of their
sleeping in that car? Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But like everywhere in LA is valet, so you're like too embarrassed, right? You're like, oh, let's just park down the street. But yeah, that's pretty much what we did. And we applied for our green cards while we were there, got them, because that's the biggest issue is once you're down there, people are like, cool, let's hire you. Do you have your paperwork? And you're like, so paperwork was the number one thing to do. And then we got paperwork, and then it started, like, okay, let's get like Joe jobs. Let's figure it out. And we were there for like 6 years.
Wow, that's amazing. So you applied for a visa and then went down? I'm super curious about this stuff right now. That's
What are you, a cop?
Yeah. No,
are you gonna background check me?
No. I don't know how you did it.
We went there, and then once we were there for a month, like a month into our 2-month stay, we called an immigration lawyer, and we were like, okay, what do we have to do?
And you got that quick?
No, it took a while, but we weren't allowed to leave the States until we were approved. Because if you leave, then it's like you abandon your application.
So when you're over there, if you're already over there and apply, it's easier?
It's quicker.
Don't give up any of your plans here, man. Yeah. You're going to get stopped.
Not easier, because also you can't work while you're there.
I don't have any plans.
So,
what are you talking about?
Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
I'm asking for a friend, hey?
Yeah, I'm just asking for a friend.
But yeah, it's hard because you're down there and it's like they expect people to apply for citizenship or for like a, visa or whatever you're applying for, and you can't work until you get approved. So, I guess they assume everyone's like super rich when they come.
Yeah, you're just gonna sit there and feed off your my savings.
Yeah, right.
At LA rent prices.
Yeah, right.
Insane.
Dude, I got about 13 hours here, and then I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. Coffee's like $20. You're like, oh, great. Yeah, it was wild, but we figured it out. And like, honestly, that's like one of my biggest, like, I guess, mottos in life is like, where there's a will, there's a way. Like,
Absolutely.
just figure it out. We didn't really have a plan, but we figured it out. So,
That's incredible.
yeah. Yeah, it was pretty
Nice.
wild. We lived in like some random lady's house in her guest bedroom, we lived in a house with this stranger, because when you go there, they don't transfer your credit from Canada to the US.
Let's start
so
over.
you start with a $300 prepaid Visa card.
Wow, nice.
So try to rent an apartment with that. No.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that's like I feel like that's probably like common for them down there though, to have like, oh, I have an extra bedroom, I'm gonna rent it to whoever.
100%.
Right? Just
Yep.
because like how crazy the prices are and like how many people are trying to get to LA, like
So I guess like with what you're saying, like, do you feel like you still live like that here though? Because I'm sure, like, with what you said, I don't know what your family. You said you grew up on a farm in Quebec. Like, I'm sure, like, you grew up like it's the same house. It's like your parents are probably hammering down the mortgage and like things like that. And now you're here, but like if you got the call tomorrow,
Yeah.
you could be that whatever this job is that you were offered, like could be in Vancouver, could be in LA. It's not my business, but you could be gone. Like, so do you kind of live that, not vagrant's the wrong word,
nomad
Yeah,
life, like here,
100%.
like you don't tie around roots, you don't buy a house, like you don't get into like buying or owning things, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that's how I lived my life up until last year. So I was always fine with like, I was like, I don't think I'll ever own a house. That's okay. Unless like I really like, hit it big, obviously,
Right, yeah,
like
I'm
if
gonna
I'm
buy
like an
5 houses,
A-lister, like I'm fine.
house in every state.
Yeah. But I was like, I'm okay with chasing my dream and never having a house and just like popping in from city to city. Like I'm okay with that. But what happened when we moved to Windsor is that all of a sudden, because I can audition from Windsor and I don't have to be in LA all the time, all of a sudden this opportunity of like, well, we could have roots because what we're saving in our life costs, we just apply to like travel. Like,
Right.
oh, I have to fly to LA to do this gig, because sometimes when I'll do an audition, they're like, we're only hiring LA locals. So I'll say I live in LA and then I'll fly myself there.
Beep that out.
No, it's fine. Like I always say I split my time between Windsor and Los Angeles because I essentially do. So it's when we bought the house, I was very nervous because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like owning something. Is it gonna make me feel tied down? Are we gonna be able to, next year we are gonna be in the States for 6 months, a year. Are we gonna be able to do that? But it's just all worked out. Like the cost of living here just makes it so that we have that freedom, which is crazy.
So
I never thought I'd be able to.
We spend
do
every
that.
conversation about how we hate the cost of living here, but like that does. I mean,
Yeah.
How it's expensive, you guys find?
Yeah, we're like, oh my god, and we bitch about it nonstop. But yeah, that is pretty crazy. And like, well, for you, I've seen you. At first it was weird to me because I'd be like, I see you every single day, and then it's like, hey, where's Sarah been?
Yeah.
She's been gone for like 3 months.
And it's like she didn't even mention anything, and she's gone for like 3 months, and then you'd be like back, like hi, like walk in one day, and you're like, hey, like
Yeah,
but that's
where
kind of
you
like
been?
your life, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
In a lot of ways,
it's
I'm sure.
fun, but it's super stressful because as soon as you get a job, like I just booked a job on Friday, and it's like all of a sudden now you're like, okay, what are my dates? And they're like, well, we think these are your tentative dates, but they might shift, so just like hold on. And then you have all these things like, today we were supposed to meet at a later time, and then last minute they're like, we're doing a read through of the script at this time. I don't have a choice. Like, it's that time. I'm not going to ask like a star of a show, can you actually like push your lunch for the day so I can do
go
a
to Tango One
podcast?
podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's just.
You might have heard of them, 687 followers.
Yeah. Let's go.
But like all of a
12
sudden,
5-star rating.
yeah, exactly. Check it out, guys. But you just have to shift your whole life. You're kind of you're just kind of at the mercy of production
right.
all
Yeah.
the time. So I'm an extremely reliable person, I think, but my job makes me extremely unreliable, which is hard. But
yeah, that's frustrating.
yeah, but it's just I kind of let people know, if I'm shooting something, I'm just kind of they own me.
Right.
Yeah. So it's it can be stressful when you're trying to plan things, but I just have learned to plan away, and you just have to be okay with like canceling. Like I have a trip to France coming up, and then of course those days just conflict with this job that I just got, but I was like, okay, I'll just like shift my trip or figure it out. You can't stress too much
Wow.
because it'll change all the time. A big lesson in Zen.
Zen. There you go.
Yeah.
All about the Zen lately.
Yeah.
Zen and the calling. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, man. So like, do you have something? I feel
No,
like I
no,
just
no.
cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So with you, I'm curious. Do you pick and choose? Like, are you looking and you're like this, or do you just go for everything that's
For
like
auditions?
asking for like I don't know how they come. Like we're looking for a woman with brown hair. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
or are you just like you're like everything that's in the inbox, or are you swiping right a bunch and then you're like, oh, I want this one. Like, how does that work? Is that gonna go with how successful you are at the time?
For me, I have a lot of actor friends that are way more picky than me. They'll look at something and be like, don't want to do that, wouldn't want to do that. Or, people that have families that are like, oh, this show shoots in like France for 6 months. And they're like, I can't.
I'm good.
They're like, I can't. My kids, it's just not worth it for me. So I don't want children. I never say never, but so far I have not wanted children. And I'm more of the actor that I will audition for a lot of stuff. Like I'm always down to audition for, like I'm really not that picky. I mean, if it's really like if the script's really bad and like the money's not good, then I might be like, because I'm a big believer too, and this has been my lesson for this year, is if you want something, you have to make space for it too. So a couple times I've said no this year to things. Like I actually just got a huge audition yesterday, and they need her to sing and play the guitar. I am a horrible singer, like horrible. I could sing with people, but alone, like I clamp up. And I called my manager and I was like, this is not for me. Like they want a recording of me like singing Nirvana. And I'm like, no, this is not for me. Like it's horrible. So he's like, okay, we'll pass on it. But it hurts my soul to pass on things, because you're like, but what if maybe she didn't have to be that good of a singer, but you just kind of have to go with your gut and like not torture yourself.
To sing Nirvana, you don't have to be that good of a singer anyways.
Like auto-tune, I guess. Yeah. But they, when they genuinely want something, I try to be as honest as possible, but people lie about their skills all the time.
For sure.
I can ride a horse,
So one of the things that like we always hear too is like, to be successful, you got to learn to say no all the time.
Yeah.
But it sounds like with what you're doing, it's almost the opposite. Like you kind of just have to throw it out to everybody. But it's like saying no to the wrong roles, I guess it would be, to kind of tie it to this conversation. You're saying no to the roles that you're not going to be good at.
Yeah.
That's where I think it's like you're going to have a lot of success in a certain area because you're saying no to those ones, because those ones might damage everything else that you're building.
Right. And yeah, that's the thing. You just have to know yourself, know what you want to excel at. I think, in this business, if you're starting out as an actor, like, yes.
Of course, yeah.
You never know. I've been on so many sets that, I wasn't being paid. It was just like, okay, I'm just going to like go do this day on this web series. I might meet someone, I don't know. And, you do that day, you don't get paid anything. It was not like the best day of your life. And then like 5 years later, you're like, oh, that's why I went and did that gig, because her husband works for Sony, and we just released a film, and he watched it and he's like, let me get this to the people at Sony. It's like it all comes back. So I think like when you're starting your career, saying yes is really important, because you never know where that's going to go. But as you do have, there will be like, there's a shift in an actor's career where all of a sudden, it goes from like, oh, I just want a job, I just want exposure, to a film will benefit from me being in it, right? Whether it's my name or my talent. Yeah. And that's when you have to be more careful. Yeah. Because it's like, well, you're kind of the thing that's like gonna get this movie made.
Right.
So you're kind of the face of this movie. Do you want to be the face of this movie?
Right.
You know, you just have to, it's more of like a business decision versus like, I just want credits and
every
money,
time you say yes to an audition, to a gig, to a job, you're essentially practicing.
100%.
Like that's a rep.
Yeah.
It's another rep, more time under tension, more reps under under the bar.
Exactly.
Which is gonna make you better. So like
100%.
And at the end of the day, like you're talking about, like, what else am I gonna have to do? Like,
right.
If I don't do this week, I'm not really working towards my end goal.
Yeah, and if ever, like, I actually have an audition that I'm doing right after this. It's something that I'm not like, oh, I really want this. Like, the script isn't amazing, but it's an American independent film that the casting director is casting a lot of like pretty good stuff I've met him a few years ago. So I was like, if I audition for this, he'll see my face. I'm going to do a really good job. And if ever we get an offer that doesn't make me happy, then I'll just say no.
Right.
But at least I get my face in front of him, and maybe he'll be like, "Oh, next movie, oh, she was great in that. Let's get her to read for this." So, like, it's like spider web, right? You never know.
Yeah, you're like stacking up your wins. You're creating, because you're saying like when you first started, you have to say yes to everything, and it's like to become the person that stars in that show, you have to build that person by saying yes. Like, that one worked, that one didn't, this one didn't. Like, I just remember when I first started building furniture, when I first started working building furniture, I would say yes to everything, and I learned really quickly what I liked and what I didn't like. And it's like I would have never gone down the road that I went if I didn't know to avoid certain things like refinishing and stuff like that. And that's I created who I was because I said I guess focused on just the stuff that I knew that I was going to be great at, becoming that star of that show that you were just talking about, like in the work that I was doing.
Exactly. And it's like going to a buffet and being like, okay, I'm going to try a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
but now I know what I like.
Yeah.
I know when I go, I'm going to go straight for the chicken balls,
Yeah, there you go. Right. I don't blame you. That's always a good choice. Yeah. That's always a good choice for sure.
So I know you do have an addition. I know you want to go try the new Garage Evil at Mackey's place around the corner. Great memory. We love the local business around here. It's awesome. That's the best part about this little move is being around all these local places now.
Yeah.
Even though we're only like 100 meters from the old spot, I feel more a part of it. But anyways, so I guess we always want to give people like some actionable like motivation and things.
Yeah.
So what would you say, like maybe 1 or 2 tips on like handling rejection? Like a 3% rate being a success is mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to like hammer that home. Like,
no,
like,
it is.
what is something you would say to whether you want to make that like young woman specific or just anybody specific?
How to get over rejection. Well, see, for me, I don't see it as rejection. I kind of like flip the narrative.
Go.
Yeah. So I do not see it as rejection. I see it as an opportunity. So a lot of people will, call their agents and be like, so. But like I said, I forget. And I think the best way to think about it for me is that person got to see my work. And that's all I can put out. Like all you can put out into the world in your control. And honestly, it like, I can't say that it doesn't bother me because it does, but I just have to focus on what I can control.
Right.
So if I'm sending out auditions that make me happy, that's success. And if you can apply that to everyday life, whether it's your job, your children, your business, I think that if at the end of the day, you're like, I checked all the boxes that I was supposed to do today and I did it in a way that makes me proud of who I am. No one bought a membership today. No, my kids had a tantrum today, but I did the things the way that I want to do them. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you did it your way.
See you tomorrow. Because it's just such like the world, you can't control anything. Right. You can only control yourself.
Yeah, I think taking those failures and rejections, whatever you want to call them, like my son striking out, like it sucks, man. It sucks. Like it sucks. It is normal that you feel that it hurts.
Yeah.
It's not just take it on the chin and go back up there. It is. It's like feel it, breathe it out, accept it. You struck out. Did you learn from it? which is essentially it. And
Yeah.
you have another opportunity to go back up to the plate. Like, and that's really what you have too. And I think that's a good lesson for everybody, because we do get stuck on those losses for too
100%.
long.
And I think the fact that I do have so many failures,
I got so many losses.
like so many failures, like, you know, just in the past week, I've auditioned maybe 5 times. I got one of them, which is rare, but I did. Hooray for me. But 4 of those did not. But you know, it's like I learned something from each one.
Absolutely.
Like just a micro something, you know. Next, I feel like I didn't perform that well in that audition. Why? Well, did you know your lines that well? How long did you spend on the audition, Sarah? Get your shit together. You know, it's like always a way to just like check in with myself and just like be real about it.
That's a great way of looking at things.
It's a very resilient thing. Like you're just like
It's
learning scripts, like putting in the work, filming it, sending it. It's a lot of work for like, that's incredible. Like that's like, you got some crazy amount of grit for sure.
I cry a lot, but I keep going.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Wow.
So I'm not sure when this episode will come out. I think it's going to be just before the event we want to talk about. The Gym Army's getting behind you. Maybe just fill us in. June 22nd. What's going on there?
Yeah. So Windsor has a film festival, Windsor International Film Festival, which is usually at the end of October into November, and which it is this year. But what they're doing this year as a special event is June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. They're highlighting local films. So it's a whole weekend dedicated to movies that are made by Windsor filmmakers, which is awesome. So we made our film Last Call in Windsor in 2018. We shot it at St. Clair College, the Media Center, and also at Park Place, like the high rise. And this film we shot in one take. So there are no cuts in this film. We yell action, and then 80 minutes later, cut.
80 minutes.
80 minutes.
I was thinking like you're going to do like a single shot, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 80 minutes.
80 minutes.
Damn.
80 minutes.
So, okay, so I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going. Sorry.
No, it's fine. So essentially, we made that movie. It has done incredibly well. Like we have gone to so many film festivals throughout the world. That's what I won my ACTRA I won an ACTRA award for it, which is kind of like equivalent to like a SAG award. So it's our union that gives out acting awards. And the film has really changed my career, my husband's career. And we get to show it again in Windsor at the Capitol Theater, June 22nd at 2 p.m. We premiered it here in Windsor at the St. Clair like the Chrysler
Center for the Arts.
The big venue, and people were like loved it, really affected by it. So we're just really excited to share it with people again, and I'm excited to share it with people from the gym and from Windsor, because this is the first time that I get to have a screening in a city where I live, like in Windsor where I live, which is really fun. So the fact that like people from the gym are stoked to come see it makes me really happy.
And Nikki's really like, everybody's going.
I know, I'm so stoked. So yeah, it's definitely a film. It's a heavy film. It has to do with suicide. So, you know, trigger warning for people that, you know, may be sensitive to that. But it's we're really proud of the movie, and we're just super stoked for people to watch it. And also we're going to Craft Heads after. So
nice. Yeah. There you go. Sounds like a good night.
You're right.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, man, this has been awesome. You've been awesome. You're always awesome. I love having you around, and you're a great person to have in our lives. I love having you as part of the member, but I'm so happy to hear like more of your story and more of your success. So thanks for coming on today, taking some time.
Thank you.
And go crush this next little audition you got.
Yeah.
Now the nervous breath starts. It's like the easy part's over. The hard part of your day starts after.
Yeah.
this.
Now I gotta go cry on camera. So fun.
Yeah. Crazy. So
all right.
fun.
Over and out. You guys can catch all the information on that show and stuff will be in our show notes, and you can just click on it and buy the tickets and support Sarah.
Let's go.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
That's it.